Hey, deserving listeners, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Let's watch.
I want you to think that I'm not sensitive to another race or another culture.
I believe that you see everyone equally. I do.
Yeah, of course. For me, what really set me off was when you said, are you the girl that says, I don't see color?
So, 2 thumbs up for Sutton for approaching Crystal. That's great. And 2 thumbs up to Crystal saying, look, I know you're a good person. It's a great way to start, unless the person is a bad person, according to you. But usually people are coming from a good place, so you want to establish that. Look, I know you're a good person. I like you. I know you're not trying to do anything bad, and I just want to put that out there, because you put the racism word in there, and for a lot of people, that is one of the worst things in society you could ever be labeled, for a lot of good reasons. And then they freak out, and the tears happen, and the defensiveness happens.
It's insulting.
But people say that to me all the time. Like, oh, we're all friends. I don't see color.
But saying like you're that girl that says that, it wasn't very nice.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't very nice. But again, if you're coming from a place of privilege, Sutton, you should probably say, look, that hurt my feelings, but tell me more. What do you mean by that? Where's that coming from?
When someone says they don't see color, it's confusing because you look at a box of crayons, you see color. I have friends who say, I don't think of you as Asian. You're just my friend. And I'm like, I see you as white. I see you as black. I know I'm Asian. Like,
I know you're Asian.
Yeah, but people say that to me all the time.
Okay. So, good conversation, they're not yelling at each other, no one's upset, and it's a good start. But again, if I were Crystal, I would say, okay, you don't see color, but you probably do see color, right? I mean, it's hard not to in our society. And when people say they don't see color, sometimes that's a cop-out as a way of avoiding one's own subconscious racism that they exhibit. And that scares me because then I don't know if that, when someone says, I don't see color, I don't know if I can trust them around me because I don't know if they actually understand what racism is. I worry that they're just saying they don't see color and sweeping it under the rug.
But I have been on the other side of racism. I've been attacked.
I remember I was probably 10 or 11. I was in the backseat of my dad's car. He was pumping gas, and there was a man that drove up next to us and started screaming at him, get out of my country, you're taking all our money.
Right. So the way I like to explain to privileged people is this. Let's say that the amount of racist individuals in a society is 0.1%. So 1 out of 1,000 people is extremely racist. So we're talking a very rare individual. But where does that 1 in 1,000 person get their racism? From society. They're not just born that way. Society tells them information. Their families tell them that information. So let's say that it's extremely rare. And you are actually one of the 999 people that isn't overtly racist. But for the people of color, if it's 1 out of 1,000, we come into contact with thousands of people every month. So we will come into contact with 5, 10, 50 individuals who are extremely racist against us and will do things against us. So for you as a privileged person, you don't have to deal with that. And for you as a privileged person to say, I don't see color, I don't know what the big deal is, denies the pain and the fear that people of color live with. I have many similar stories as she does, and I'm half Japanese, and often people think I'm white. But some people definitely see me as an Asian person, a story that I often tell. Not that long ago, I was in Ballard, which is a very progressive neighborhood in Seattle, actually just down the street from me. I'm driving down the road, and we both came to a stop sign at the same time. I thought maybe I was first, and so I went. And I pulled up, and I went like half a block to the next stop sign. This car pulled in behind me. The woman got out of the car. This is a young woman, 30, 25 years old, gets out of the car, starts banging on my window and says, you chink. And I don't know what else she said. It was something about cutting her off or something. We both came to a stop sign, a 4-way stop. We both came to this at the intersection exact same time, and then I went. And okay, let's say that I got there a little bit after she did. Who cares, right? But anyway, I went, she gets behind me, she's yelling at me, and she said chink. It's one thing to be yelled at in a sort of irrational situation like that, but it's another thing to be, racial slur like that. And that's been happening my entire life. I, as a child, would get into fights. People would call me all sorts of names, which I won't repeat, and I would have to get into a fight with them because I felt like if I didn't, it was just going to keep happening. Essentially, it's racism, bullying. And I was lucky because I was kind of a larger child. I'm sort of a bigger person, taller person, and could defend myself and essentially just beat them up, for lack of a better, and they would stop. But I didn't know what else was going on, and my friends, because I grew up in a mostly white community, there was a lot of microaggressions, a lot of mild racist things that would happen all the time. And I would just go along with it because I didn't have any allies and I didn't have any way of even knowing what was happening to me was a bad thing. I just would laugh it off. Like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm Asian. That's funny. All the racist jokes I would just go along with. And so anyway, Crystal's talking about that and I can relate, Crystal.
When you are a person of color, those things happen often. And if you can shed light to someone that might not understand that, maybe that can change their perspective.
If I offended you or made you feel angry at me for crying, I don't know, I didn't mean to do that.
Okay, good. I don't know if Sutton's really getting it at this point. I have a similar story to Crystal as well. When I was a kid, the one vacation my family would go on every summer is we would go to Hayden Lake in Idaho. My white grandparents had a home that was on the lake there. And around the corner from the home that we would stay in was the KKK headquarters in the Northwest of the United States. So when we would go to town, my dad would tell us, okay, we're going into town and we might run into some KKK members because the Northwest United States headquarters is right around the corner from where we are vacationing right now. So, family of mine, if Daddy has to get into a fight, then that's just what's going to happen. And I remember being scared, but also happy that my dad was, I just saw my dad as someone who would just kick the ass of anybody. I just remember seeing his forearms just be like, yeah, those forearms are going to do some damage. Looking back, I have no idea if he would have won a fight, but he convinced me. But I can't imagine what it would have been like to be my dad. Of I'm going into town, is a KKK member going to kill me? Kill my children? What's going to happen here? So, yeah, it's a thing that people of color deal with. And privileged people should take the time to understand that and convey understanding and rise to the occasion as an ally. Let's see what Sutton says.
New York, I was 25 years old, and I literally was in an elevator with someone, and they heard my accent, and this man said to me, oh, so you're from the South? Are you a racist? I got a lot of that living in New York.
Right.
And so
you're on guard about it.
I am on guard.
It's a big topic, and
Right. So to discriminate against someone from the South in that way and be prejudiced against a white person from the South is unfair. That's unfair. You shouldn't just hear accent and assume something about someone else. That is uncool. Absolutely.
So appreciate this conversation.
Yeah. We're cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, good.
Should we go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I will.
I don't know what was accomplished. I mean, they made up, which is fine, but I don't know if Sutton really gets. It wasn't demonstrated that. I don't think she really understands when she says I don't see color. I don't think she really gets it. And again, I don't fault her for not understanding it because I don't think it's been really laid out for her very well. When Crystal was talking in the one-on-one interview, I wish Sutton could have heard those things because I think that would have helped.
I'm from the South. People think I am racist.
The presupposition that I might be is makes me.
Does anyone make you feel that way?
No.
To me, because I feel like I'm such a child of the world, I don't look at it like everybody from the South.
Okay, so I'm glad they're having a conversation about this, and I'm glad they're showing it on a television show. They're essentially asking the question, as a privileged white person, how do I prove to people that I am not racist? That is a hard thing to prove, and it is quite a conundrum. And there are certain tropes that people will use, like, I have a black friend. And of course, that doesn't prove that you're not a racist. Or they'll say, I am married to a person of color. That also doesn't prove that you aren't a racist. You can absolutely be married to someone who is a person of color and treat them poorly. Or you give an exception to your spouse, but the rest of the world you will treat in a racist manner. So it's hard, you know. How do you say? Is there a certificate of non-racism that you can be given? You know, it's hard. There's really no good answer to it, is the thing. And that's okay. And that's part of one of the cons of being privileged. You know, there are pros and cons, many more pros of being privileged. But one of the cons is, like, how do you prove? On the other side of the coin is that people of color sometimes are given a pass on their racism because it's just generally assumed that they aren't racist, which of course is not true. Science shows that people of any color, people of any race, can have racism, can treat other people unfairly based on their ethnicity or their race. So we live in a weird world, and we have to take all these things into consideration before we talk about these kinds of things. But they're talking about it, which is good.
So it's stupid.
Happened.
I have no idea.
I was just feeling left out.
But honey,
There was a practical joke. Be honest, Chris.
There was a joke, but she didn't have nothing to do with it.
Okay, so I don't know Sutton, but I suspect what's happening for her right now is some rejection trauma is being triggered in her. It's a little foggy for me on the details, but there was a practical joke amongst a couple of them. And then another group of people, smaller group of people, also said, okay, we're going to do a practical joke on the practical jokers. And then there was another small group of people that had no idea what was happening at all. And Sutton was in that group. So they're coming away from dinner, and Sutton he learns that there was this practical joke that she wasn't let in on, that people conspired on this joke that they didn't tell her about. And for anyone, I think there would be at least a little bit of hurt there, just like, oh, why didn't they let me in on that practical joke? Why was the joke on me? Why didn't, they conspired, someone came up with a practical joke and they reached out to someone. Why didn't they reach out to me? Again, it'd be normal to have a little bit of hurt. For Sutton, I suspect that little bit of hurt became bigger because probably some trauma that she's been through regarding rejection, maybe even being bullied or rejected by a group of people when she was younger. She's at school and she's excluded, like a group of people are like, ha ha ha, we're going to exclude you. It's not uncommon for people to grow up with experiences like that and to have those become unresolved, traumas, relational traumas that we go through. So she has a bigger feeling than would seem appropriate to the situation based on those relational traumas. She's crying, and she is now angry, which is what we usually do with our pain. We usually transform it into anger and hostility.
you kicked me.
No, I kicked you because I didn't want to ruin the joke.
Let's
Dude,
sit down.
you're so uptight. Relax.
All right, will you sit down for a
It's
minute?
a joke
It
about
was a
water
joke, and we were just having a good
Let's
time.
sit down for a minute.
Dude, it's so crazy.
You got to let things go.
Dude, Sutton is...
So what's the goal here? Is the goal to shame Sutton, or is the goal to reach out to her? Is the goal to make her be quiet? Is the goal to resolve the conflict? Are Sutton's emotions exaggerated? Yeah, I think most people would see it that way. But, when people are upset, they're upset. There's not a lot they can do about it. And why attack them in the process? But Sutton was hurting other people's feelings in this moment, and then they're going to transform that hurt into anger, and they're going to push back, which of course just exacerbates the problem for her, feeling like she's being ostracized.
That's why I kicked you, because I thought
It was
you knew.
just a joke.
I didn't know.
You lost your mind about it.
I've never had a friend. Go. I've never had that.
Okay, well, it's the first time.
I cannot.
You are
To
ridiculous
reveal what
human
she
being.
was
I'm
doing.
sorry. Jeez.
Okay, so Sutton is still upset. She is still hostile towards everyone else. She's still very sad. Again, I just have to assume there's some kind of relational traumas that are being touched on in this moment, and she is locked in on a hostile point of view. Maybe we're starting to see something that is more global to her personality, a tendency to become very, very hurt and very, very hostile as a result of that big hurt in a distorted way. I don't know. There was a little bit of that earlier on in the season as well. Of course, I can't diagnose from afar, but who knows? And now Crystal is saying, I can't take this anymore. So let's continue watching.
Move on. I said I'm sorry.
Okay, nice apology.
Don't say nothing. Crystal's being a little tough on Sutton, but Sutton and I didn't hit it off right away either. I think sometimes people just rub you the wrong way.
Y'all, come on. I can't do this. I really can't. I gotta go to bed.
For them right now, their energy is not vibing.
Right, so I think Sutton is actually coming a little unglued, and I think there are other reasons as to why that's happening. I don't think it has to do just with this incident. I think that something's going on inside of Sutton's psyche, something in her past that's being touched upon right now. So maybe with time she'll be able to regulate and approach with more differentiation in the future.
There's no moving forward.
Your fault, Kathy Hilton.
Sun is just proving to me that she's the kind of person that I thought she was last night. You cannot rationalize with irrational people.
I'm telling you right now, as your friend, you're being overly sensitive. Look at me. Pay attention to me.
Okay.
So I think that's Kyle. Kyle seems to have an interesting relationship with Sutton, or maybe everyone on this show. Is that her name, Kyle? She seems to be really forceful with Sutton, which is interesting. I don't know what we're seeing there, but maybe we'll keep that in mind as we continue to watch the show.
For girlfriends.
That's right.
It's to an unhealthy level for her. It scares me. She's like losing her mind.
Crystal, are you up?
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.